We all good? All good to start? Can you all hear me okay? Perfect. Awesome. Thank you for coming. It's been a long day, I know. Um, who's feeling it now? Who's tired? I know I am. I'll get to why I'm tired in a little in a little bit. Yeah. So welcome to my session on profiles to permission sets. Before I start, I just want to give a massive shout out to all the sponsors. Obviously, without them, events like today can't happen. So a massive shout out to all the sponsors. I'm going to start just by telling you a little bit about me. There's me. There's my name. So I started with Salesforce as an end user. So actually, I don't know if you in France have O2 or Telefonica. It's a mobile. So think of Orange, just like Orange. So I was the technical person in the store that people would come in to book appointments with and just fix their phones. And this is the day back in the day where it was Blackberries and mobile broadbands, and it was a lot more complicated than it is today. And they brought Salesforce in for us. It was totally customized, literally just to book appointments. So customers could go online, book appointments with us, come in, and we'd help them. So that was where I started with Salesforce. I then moved to a B2B company, still in telecoms, and they used it in the more traditional way of accounts, contacts, opportunities, all of that. And that was probably I know it's a cliche, but that's probably at the point where I kind of fell in love with the platform because I'd seen it being used in the same industry, really, two completely different ways. And that was 12 years ago. So yeah, I've been here for a while. I'm now the Salesforce technical instructor at Salesforce Ben, where I've been for just over a year now. 14 times certified. I'm also a Supermum's mentor, was previously a Trailblazer mentor, and the London admin user group also had one. But yeah, I just like if anyone is looking to mentor, I would highly recommend the Supermums program. It's a really, really good scheme that they've got going on. And lastly, I'm part of the Salesforce credentialing team. Most recently worked on the AI Associate. So if anyone's got any questions on that, feel free to grab me after, and I'll happily go through that with you. So here is the agenda for the session. So I'm going to start by just sharing my experience in this area, because a lot of people will probably be thinking, why is he up there talking about it, which is fair. Then I'm going to talk about profiles, permission sets, permission set groups, the kind of planning that you'd need to put into a project like this, then a couple of tools that are available, the user access and permissions assistant, and user access policies. So my experience in this area. So first of all, I'm a certified sharing and visibility architect. So anyone that's taken that will know that you're not going to pass it without knowing the ins and outs of this topic. In my previous role, I don't think this is such a thing in Europe really, but in my previous role, it was a UK company that got acquired by a US company who were publicly traded. So because of that, they were SOX compliant. And as they had acquired us, we then also needed to become SOX compliant. So I literally needed to go through a project of revamping all roles, profiles, literally on a granular level, explaining why every user is allowed to do everything on their profile, which you can imagine was time consuming, frustrating, and it was not enjoyable, not in the slightest. Anyway, as I said, I'm also 12 years in the ecosystem now, primarily as an admin, so I've dealt with a lot of users in my time. Before I start, I don't know if anyone in the room has seen this little bombshell that Cheryl Feldman dropped yesterday. Kind of ruined my whole presentation, if I'm honest. Yeah, so basically she's saying, hey, awesome admins, wanted to update you on the end of life of permissions on profiles. We're no longer going to enforce the Spring 26 end of life date. However, I still wholeheartedly recommend you operate with a permission set led security model. All of our investment are very permission set and permission set group focused from a permission standpoint, and in the coming weeks there'll be some updated blog posts. So thanks, Cheryl, for that. So I was sent this last night at the speakers dinner by Todd. I'm sure most people know Todd. He's not here, unfortunately, but he's MVP Golden Hoodie winner and just a very nice guy, especially now he sent me this. So I literally had to leave the dinner early, go back and find a new angle for this presentation. Yeah. So that so that's why I'm a little bit tired. Anyway, so you might all now be thinking, well, so this is irrelevant, right? I think it's still relevant. I thought of another example of change sets. So change sets are still about, but no one uses them. No one uses them because there's better technologies out there. There's better ways of doing it. And I think that's how we now need to start looking at profiles. They're not going anywhere, but there's better ways to manage changes, permissions, especially for admins. So let's start with what is a profile. So a good way I've thought of about this is everyone received one of these to come in today. So if you imagine the organisers of the event are like your system admin, that little pass is like your profile, gives you basic access into the building, into certain areas like here, like the keynote room, etc. So that's kind of a good way of looking at what a profile is. So what to keep on profiles? This is one of the slides that changed a lot last night. I will not lie. So Salesforce did officially announce that permissions were going to be retired. It may still happen in the future. We don't know. I thought the wording around investment was peculiar because they don't normally say that we're going to spend all our money on this and neglect that. They've actually come out and said it for this, which I found interesting. So Spring 26 was the hard date of when this was going to happen. It's obviously not a hard date anymore, so kind of makes it a bit easier because we can kind of manage this change in our own time and not be pressed on a hard date. That being said, there's certain things that are still going to remain on the profile. So things like one-to-one relationships, your login hours, your IP ranges, any defaults you've got, so record types and apps, and the page layout assignment. I mainly think that the page layout assignment is not moving because not many people care about it anymore. Let's be honest. We've got our lightning pages, we've got our nicer ways of doing things now, but they're still relevant to some degree, so they're staying on the profile. So now what is a permission set? So if we're sticking to this analogy, so as a speaker, I have my pass, but I also needed kind of additional privileges, maybe coming early. If there was a room for preparing for the session, I'd need that. So that's something that the organisers could have then granted me as additional permissions in the same way as an admin would permission sets. So what is moving to permission sets? So this is quite a long list. You've got your user permissions, your object permissions, field permissions, tabs, record types that aren't defaults, apps that aren't defaults, connected app access, Apex classes, Visual Force pages, and custom permissions. So these are all moving to permission sets if you decide to do this. Obviously, before yesterday, I could say you had to do this. Now, not so much. But if you are going to do this, these are the things you need to be aware of. So what is a permission set group? So there's speakers here that are like me, just speakers. There are also speakers here that are they're sponsors as well. So for those, they will need, again, additional privileges. So for those, the organisers could have set up the base profile pass to get in. Then they could have bundled together the different permissions that they need, such as the speaker room, the things like that. And then maybe if there's a sponsors lounge or whatever for sponsors, they could bundle those together. And then if a speaker that's part of a sponsor arrives, say, there you go, there's your bundle, and everyone who's in that group can be given the same bundle. Planning for this kind of project is a big deal. This is the one thing you probably need to get right. So first of all, you need to know your profiles. So for example, if you've got a sales user and a sales manager profile, what are the differences between the two? Likewise, if you've got a super user, what permissions have they got over a regular user? Also see how you can plan, how you can group permissions together. So if you've got, for example, a sales manager and a service manager profile, can these be grouped together into one manager profile that deals with things like reports and dashboards? And lastly, you need to communicate with your users. You need to remember that those are the people that are going to be affected the most from this. So you need to communicate with them what's changing, why it's changing, when it's changing, and include them in the journey, because you need their buy-in for this to go right. So first of all, on the two-step or the two-prong approach is the user access and permissions assistance. So this is a free app available on the App Exchange. It gives the ability to select permissions from profiles, and you can migrate them into permission sets. And I'm now going to give you a quick demo of just how that works. So here we are. Also, for anyone that's not aware, you can see the brand new Salesforce branding just at the top there. So yeah, this is the main app. So you've got your different tabs. You've got your permissions analyzer, you've got your converter, report, and manage. So permissions analyzer broken down into user, permission set groups. One thing that I've done a lot when starting new admin jobs, which this now makes a lot easier, is let's see who has modify all, because no one should have modify all but admins. So the amount of time I've spent as an admin having to go through each profile and seeing who can modify all data, who can view all data. With this tool, you can now do that straight away, and it can be broken down by your profiles, permissions, sets, and groups as well. So it's a really handy tool that you've got here. Next, we've got the converter. So this is really good if you've got, say, so the example I'm going to give is the sales profile. So I'm happy to change this directly into a sales user permission set. So because it's got all the permissions that they need, nothing more, nothing less. So for that, just go to the little drop down, convert to permission set, give it a name. Hit convert, and then there we go. So once that's done as well, you can view it straight into the permission sets, and it's going to be in there straight away, and you can manage your assignments from there as well. So next you've got the report. So if I think back to my SOX compliance projects.
Yeah, so when you do the conversion, does it automatically assign the users that were previously on the front?
No. So it doesn't assign them the users automatically. You need to go and do that manually. At the moment, I think some kind of functionality like that is coming to the tool. Yeah, sorry. So if I think back to my SOX compliance where I needed to granularly go through everything, this tool would have saved my life, because I could literally have gone through user permissions, object permissions, field permissions, ran the report, exported it, and then gave it to the compliance guys and said, there you go. And then finally, we've got the Manage tab. So here you can see the permission set groups that are currently available, and you can also manage the assignments as well. So you can assign or unassign from here as well. So yeah, that is that tool. And I'll leave that there for anyone that wants to scan it, and that's where you download it from. It's directly from the App Exchange. I think the ratings aren't great because it replaced the previous product or app that wasn't as good, and now they've revamped it, but they obviously can't redo the listing. That's what Cheryl told me anyway, and Cheryl told me a lot lately. So next we've got the user access policies. So this is currently in beta, and it's a tool that allows you to automate this migration process for new users or existing users when you edit their record. Don't worry, I'm going to do a demo of this as well, so if you're a visual person like me, we'll get there. So yeah, it works in a similar way to, I'd say, how workflow rules used to work. It's the same kind of interface, so most people will be familiar with it. It's quite basic, but it doesn't need to be anything more than what it is, I don't think. And yeah, so this allows you to set up different rules, such as this one here. So yeah, the sales profile, let's assign them to a sales permission set. So demo for this one. This is a lot easier of a demo. So here we are so it's already in setup once it's enabled. I've got a slide after this on how to enable it, so don't worry there. So to create a new permission, access policy, sorry, give it a name, so sales user, traditional Salesforce, it automatically does the API name. You can trigger it based on creating, updating, or both. So you could have one rule for new users you create and another for updating. For this I'm going to do for both. You've also got the different statuses you can have. So this gives you a good way of managing what you've done, and depending on what you want to do. So if I save that, I can then add in the different rules that I need for it. So if we go to edit, so I'm going to select, so you can do it based on permission set groups, package licenses, profiles, or roles. So I'm going to go for profile, and I'm going to find the sales profile. Here we are, custom sales profile. So from there you can add in additional filters. So I'm also going to add in if they're active, because that just makes sense. And then you can set it to grant or revoke access. So here I'm going to grant permission set for the sales permission set I just created. And then hit save, and then that's it. It will run in the background whenever so in this instance, whenever a user's created or updated. So this is a really good tool for if you're looking into the future as this is something you want to do, and you just want to get things in place for it now. And here we are in how to activate it. It's really easy. So if you go into your user management settings, there's just a button there for enable user access policies. It used to be a lot more complicated to enable, but now it's very, very straightforward. Cool. So in summary, you need to understand your current profiles. Yeah, as I said before, the profiles it's good to start by reviewing each profile, seeing exactly what they've got, what permissions they've got, which objects, which fields, any additional features. And once you understand all of the profiles, you can then kind of mold this strategy that you want to put in place. Then you can plan how you can group them together. So in Salesforce terminology, they use the term personas a lot, which is a good way to look at this. So you can have your sales persona, marketing, service, and that's a good place to start in where to group these together. And then also from there you can get more granular on the different kind of responsibilities you've got. So each of those personas may have managers, may have service agents, etc. And then you can make your way from there. Make use of the apps that I've showed. So they're completely free, built natively by Salesforce. So they're good at what they do. And as I said, they're completely free. So it's always nice. And most importantly, you need to do your migration in a sandbox and test with users. This is going to be the most important thing, because if something went wrong with this, you could lose the buy-in from your users very quickly. So if you've got, say, a sales manager that needs to do certain things, if they're unable to do that, you'll lose them. So as in straight away in production. Whereas if you explain to them, this is what we're doing, I need you to test this in the sandbox. If it works, great. If not, you've not broke anything. And that is all for my session. Are there any questions? Yes.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. Let's assume we still keep moving toward the good practice of going to permission instead of profile. What's the best practice in terms of decommissioning the profile? Do we create a placeholder dummy profile with zero access and apply it to users, or what's the...
That's a really good question. Thank you. Yeah, I think it to some degree it depends, because there's going to be certain profiles that need to remain, such as the system admin profile. That's not going to go anywhere. Also, ones like your integration users, things like that. I think the kind of end goal from a Salesforce point of view is a minimum access profile for people to then build on top of. I think one of the problems with that is that because of the things that need to remain on a profile, it's not always going to be possible. So for example, if you're a multi-country org, if you've got a sales team in the EU and the US, because the IP ranges that you may have set up are dependent on the profile, for that they would need to be two profiles for them. There'd be no way around it. So it really depends on the organization.
So it's really not going away at the end?
No, profiles will always be here to some degree. It's just at what level we don't know at the moment.
Might create a profile with the minimum that is needed for everyone, or
Yeah.
every single user, the bare minimum. It won't be a naked, a bare naked profile, but then with the minimum access being.
Yeah, exactly.
We could imagine maybe just like one single face page layout
Mhm.
that you want to
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So,
and
yeah,
in the end you still have a numbers of profile with a
mm,
very minimum access, but now you are giving or creating more permissions, a permission set group, unless assigning the page doesn't relate to the
yeah,
profile.
and then the same with record types and with
Exactly.
apps, things like that. So, it depends how complex the org is to begin with, really, in how we can go about this. Um, so yeah, there's always going to be a base number of profiles that I don't think it will ever be. You can just have exactly. I don't think you can just have one minimum access profile just because of all the defaults and all the one-to-one relationships that are associated to it. That's how it is at the moment. I don't know if they might have a, a vision in the future where you could have maybe an underlying permission set for defaults, for example.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's something that they're thought of, but yeah, we'll wait and see. At least now we know that we've not got a stringent timeline to stick to, though.
No stress. No pressure.
Any other? Okay.
You have to present it. Can you use that to document fitting the SOX requirements, or if not, what would you recommend to use?
Yeah, I think you can use it to, especially because you can export it into, into. Yeah, sorry. So from the tools that we showed, how can we use them for documentation, for like business documentation? And because we can export them into CSV, I think from there we'll be able to manipulate it in a way where we can put them into certain documentation depending on the documentation tool we're using, I suppose.
So that's good enough to be accepted by SOX.
For SOX, yes. For SOX, they literally accepted an Excel spreadsheet as long as it had all of the information. I mean, it was a big Excel spreadsheet, but as long as it showed them everything that they needed, that was enough. Any more questions? No. Well, in that case, thank you for coming. Enjoy the rest of the day.